This is Scott Vanderplu, and you're listening to the Artist Edition Index Podcast, episode 38. Thank you for joining us once again for All Things AE, where we take the written word from aeindex.org and bring it to voice on this podcast once a month. As I said, I'm your host, Scott Vanderplu, and you can reach the site at aeindex.org. You can reach me, Scott, at aeindex.org, and you can find the site on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Those links are available on the site, aeindex.org, at the bottom. So have a peek there. All right. That's the sales pitch for the intro. Let's get into the month that was, right? And I'd like to do this podcast at the end of the month to recap what happened. So the big news for January 2020 is the 2019 Dunbier Awards. Now I always said the Scott Dunbier Awards, but I'm trying to cut it down a little bit, make it sound a little more prestigious like the Eisners. It's a work in progress. All right, we had the voting for 2019. Now, in 2019, let me recap for you. We had 6 books released, and I'll go over those. Berkeley Breathes Bloom County Artist Edition, Frank Thorne's Gita and Erotic Treasury Volume 2, Jim Lee DC Legends Artifact Edition, John Burns Marvel Classics Artifact Edition, Spawn Vault Edition 2, Walter Simonson Star Wars Artist Edition. I gave you those in alphabetical order. That's how they appear on the site. And the voting goes in the same order. Voting and results. Categories on the site are Best Publisher, Best Design, Best Reproduction and Scanning Quality. I should change it to and Scan Quality. Best Overall, Favorite Material, Purchases. So they're all single choice except for purchases, where I ask you to click off everything you bought that year. So this is it's interesting. We had a large number of voters last year, and now when I look at the results, I think the voting is way down this year, and I'm not quite sure why. I think I said this last year, and I'm bemoaning it again, but I think I need to send press releases out to every comic site that the awards are going on. It's been going on, blah, blah, blah. Give a little background. Give the sales pitch and ask people to try and do the votes. When you look at the votes I'm not spoiling anything because you can go on the website and check out the votes constantly. I'm recording this on the 31st. It is the last day of the month and the last day of voting. So when you hear this, and if you haven't voted, please go immediately and vote because this closes at midnight. But right now, it's landslide. John Burns Marvel Classics Artifact Edition is pretty well sweeping every category. Not even a close. Interesting. Yeah, it leads in everything. Purchases, everything. And then publisher, best publisher, IDW is just killing it. I mean, otherwise, I don't want to spoil anything else, so go on, check it out. We will discuss the results in detail on next month's podcast because there's still an opportunity for people to come on and vote. So let's please do that. All right. Moving on to April 2020 solicitations. Now that means these solicitations went online third week of January from the previews February 2020 catalog for solicitations in April or later. Now for AE format books, it's always later. Then nobody does a 2-month solicitation. Normally people do 4 months, 6 months. All right. 1 book was solicited, which is better than last month where no books were solicited, or the month before, no books solicited. So, the book on offer is something that's been discussed previously online, and because it appeared, it's been mentioned at conventions, and that is EC Covers Artist Edition. Let me give you the blurb from the solicitation. EC Comics, under the guidance of publisher Bill Gaines, was, according to the editor of this collection, the greatest line of comics ever done. This once-in-a-lifetime artist edition collects more than 120 EC covers by their best and brightest talents. The luminaries included in this gigantic 15 by 22 inches tome include Wally Wood, Harvey Kurtzman, Graham Ingalls, Johnny Craig, Al Williamson, Frank Frazetta, Jack Davis, Al Feldstein, and more. To make a baseball analogy, this is a murderer's row every bit as noteworthy as the 27 Yankees. To date, IDW Publishing's Artist Edition series has won 6 Eisner Awards. Each cover has been shot from the original art. While appearing to be in black and white, these images were actually scanned in color, enabling the reader to see all the subtle little nuances that make original art unique. Blue pencil notations, zip-a-tone, whiteout, all of these and more are clearly visible. Honestly, the only better way to see these covers is beholding the original art in your hand. Publication date solicited for July 15th, 2020. 15 by 22 inches, 160 pages, 150 US. I think Scott Dunbier should be able to make that date. He said previously that about 50% of the covers that will be included in this have previously appeared in other artist editions. So there's been quite a few from the EC line. We've seen a Wally Wood individual volume. We've seen a Johnny Craig. We've seen a Graham Ingalls. We've seen a Jack Davis. We've seen Best of EC 1 and 2. Somebody mentioned on the forum, it was very nice. They listed out every cover that appeared. But they included Mad, and I don't think this is going to include Mad covers, but I'm not sure, so we'll have to wait and see. That's the one book solicited. Now let's talk about solicitation changes. So just if you're new to the podcast or to the Artist Edition Index in general, I update the solicitation dates every day when there's a change. That's not true. Yes, I check every day. I update when there's a change, and I change the date. There's nothing... Diamond's not working on the weekends, so they don't change the dates. So generally, I change the dates Monday to Friday. All right. Notice the list is getting smaller, and I thought we should just discuss everything coming up, and then I can mention what was changed. Original art, Dan Clow's Fantagraphics Studio Edition. I think that's being released February 12th. That looks like a firm date. Fantagraphics has been promoting it heavily. There was a release party for it yesterday at Fantagraphics, so that's pretty firm. I think the titles change. I don't believe the Fantagraphics Studio Edition portion is appearing in the title. We'll have to check the colophon when we get that. All right. The Sandman Overture, J.H. Williams III Gallery Edition, is still scheduled for February 26th. Don Rose's The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, Volume 2, Artist Edition, has moved to March 4th. That moved today. James Cameron's The Abyss Artisan Edition, adapted by Michael W. Kaluta, also moved to March 4th. Because these two books are in lockstep and moving every time, that makes me nervous. Would IDW really release both on the same day? It's a wonder. Walter Simonson's The Mighty Thor Artisan Edition, March 11th. Dave Cockrum's X-Men Artifact Edition, March 25th. The Best of Vampirella Magazine Art Edition, March 25th. Let's see if that happens. Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four Artisan Edition, April 29th. Nexus, the Newspaper Strips, Volume 1, The Coming of Gourmando Artist Edition, June 3rd. I'm not sure when that move happened. It's fairly recent. And then EC Covers Artist Edition, The New Solicitation, July 15th. Interesting with the Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four Artisan Edition, this is the first Artisan Edition that I'm not seeing solicited through bookstores, and I think that was I don't quite understand that move, because this is an affordable format. It's a $50 soft cover with French flaps. It's a nice package, and if it's only through comic shops and not through bookstores, why are they doing the Artisan Edition? Because that Artisan Edition is still in print. It was an interesting move. I'm hoping that is going to happen still, and that it's through bookstores. I think the wider array that these books can hit, I think that makes a better opportunity for people to find the Artist Edition format and to fall in love with it, like myself and the listeners. Hopefully you have too. Those are the shipping changes. There were no sales numbers because no AE format books were released in December. We will see sales numbers next month because 2 AE format books were released this month. So let's talk Artist Edition out-of-print sales for December 2019. We always take a look at what was for sale the previous month. And this is eBay. Just to reiterate what I put in the blurb at the top there, It's books that either are not available from Diamond or sometimes not available from Diamond. So I just, if it's not necessarily out of print but not available, back order, I put them on this list. I normally list the standard cover. The variant covers always go for more. They just do. Any variant edition goes for quite a bit more online. I would like to start tracking those, but it's just so much extra work. I do track the variant covers. You can always find those on the website. All right. Let's talk about what's sold. It was a lighter month for sure, even though I thought, maybe, Christmas gifts would bump the numbers up. One copy of the Alien Illustrated Story, the original art edition, sold for $81. 2 copies of Bernie Wrightson Artifact Edition, second print sold, $105 average. And no copies of the first print sold. That is very interesting, I thought. 1 copy of Best of EC Comics Volume 1 sold for $100. 1 copy of Bill Sienkiewicz's Mutants and Moon Knights and Assassins Artifact Edition sold for $180. Wow. 1 copy of Dave Gibbons' Watchmen Artifact Edition sold for $125. 1 copy of Dave Stevens' The Rocketeer Artist Edition sold for $107.50. 2 copies of David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again Artist Edition sold for an average of $173.75. 1 copy of Don Rose's The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck Volume 1 Artist Edition sold for $61.90. 1 copy of Fantagraphics Studio Edition Hal Foster's Prince Valiant sold for $99.95. Wow, that's a good, well below cover price. 1 copy of Frank Miller's Daredevil Artifact Edition sold for $95. 1 copy of Frank Miller's Sin City: The Hard Goodbye Curators Collection sold for $115.22. 2 copies of Gene Colan's Tomb of Dracula Artist Edition sold for an average of $83. 5 copies of Gil Kane's The Amazing Spider-Man Artist Edition sold for an average of $81.01. That is I don't know what's going on with that. It's moving. 1 copy of Jack Davis's EC Stories Artist Edition sold for $124.95. 2 copies of Jack Kirby's Marvel Heroes and Monsters Artist Edition sold for an average of $111.50. 1 copy of Jack Kirby's The Mighty Thor Artist Edition sold for $120. 3 copies of Jim Lee DC Legends Artifact Edition sold for an average of $100.07. 1 copy of Jim Starlin's Marvel Cosmic Artifact Edition sold for $138.96. 1 copy of Joe Kubert's Tarzan of the Apes Artist Edition sold for $65. 2 copies of Joe Kubert's Tarzan and the Lineman Artist Edition sold for an average of $72.50. 1 copy of John Buscema's Silver Surfer Artist Edition sold for $125. 2 copies of John Byrne's Fantastic Four Artist Edition sold for an average of $125. 3 copies of John Romita's The Amazing Spider-Man Artist Edition Volume 2 sold for an average of $71.66. 1 copy Lone Wolf and Cub Gallery Edition sold for $72. 1 copy Marvel Covers Artist Edition First Print sold for $130. 3 copies of Spawn Vault Edition sold for an average of $333.33. This continues to be the big book. If you have a sealed copy of Spawn Vault Edition laying around, I would put it online if you're still keeping it around sealed. Or if you just think, well, maybe I'm tired of this, I'll sell it. This book continues to stay hot. 1 copy of Star Wars Dark Times Gallery Edition sold for $72.90. 2 copies of Steranko Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Artist Edition sold for an average of $100.25. 1 copy of The Prisoner Original Art Edition sold for $72.72. Wow, that's practically cover. That's awesome for whoever was able to sell that. 1 copy of Wally Wood's EC Stories Artist Edition First Print sold for $199.99. And 1 copy of the second print sold for $143.50. 4 copies of Will Eisner's The Spirit Artist Edition sold for an average of $86.90. There's a book that deserves to be in the hands of every reader out there. All right. That's the monthly sales. Interesting. Would like to take a moment here and promote the Instagram. This is something new I started for 2020. And what I'm doing is I'm running through the first Artist Editions because this is the 10th anniversary of the Artist Edition. The Rocketeer appeared in August of 2010, and so for 2020, the Index is celebrating 10 years of this format. And as part of doing that, I'm putting up 1 image a day for my reviews, starting with the first Artist Edition and working through. So the first one was Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, and it took almost the whole month to put up. And now I'm into the second one, which is Walter Simonson's The Mighty Thor. So we're into a couple pages of that. And we'll follow that as it goes. So if you'd like to get or like to see a page every day, then please subscribe or follow. The Artist Edition Index on Instagram. That's Instagram/AE Index. All right, I wanted to get to a reader email. This is from Paul H., and he said, Scott, I would be interested in a discussion on the podcast as to a publisher's criteria for an Artist's Edition release. Is there any criteria that governs these releases, aside from expectations of profitability? I would like to hear your thoughts on this. For example, I would love to see an AE covering the art of Akira Toriyama, but I am unsure if an AE release for his art is even a realistic possibility. I believe he is popular enough that an AE release of his art could be profitable, but there may be other criteria that weigh against such a release or make it outright infeasible. I enjoy your podcast and your website. Thanks for your content. Sincerely, Paul H. Paul, thank you so much for writing in. Love these kind of things, and I normally reply right to an email, but since you asked for a podcast discussion, I thought, hey, great, let's cover that on the podcast. Is there criteria that releases anything aside from profitability? I would say no. I think profitability is the primary expectation and reason to publish a book. Right? These outside of a Kickstarter, which I think a lot of times is published for love of the material, and people are just trying to get it done. I myself keep looking at Kickstarter as a way to do some of these books from newspaper strips. But I have not got there yet. Been researching libraries and where to get material, but that's aside. So first would it make a profit? And I think a step back before that is the material available? Right? I mean, there's no point in even looking at profitability if you can't get enough material for a book. Either a complete story or something, a collection of material. I think the lowest number of pages we've seen for one of these books is was The Prisoner, and then we've seen complete stories like the David Mazzucchelli's Daredevil Born Again, which was upwards of 200 pages. So is the material available? Boom. It is great. Will enough people buy it? Had some discussions with some publishers, and they say, well, it's no publisher will give me a minimum number. I would love to see, based on this format, we need to sell 300 copies to make this book feasible. I would love to see that number from publishers, because then we could be promoting it. We could say, hey, we need this number. Can you hit this? I know Wayne Allen Harold has been very upfront about the printing numbers. He was printing 500 copies of the books, and then they don't seem to sell enough. So this last book, P. Craig Russell's The Selfish Giant and Other Stories, Fine Art Edition, he moved to a different publisher and did 250 copies. So that you have to think about that, right? What is the number to make it feasible? And I think that's the main criteria. Absolutely. There's no point in publishing something and losing money, right? And especially if you're a publisher and you've got to keep making if you got a book that you're on the fence about and it doesn't quite sell enough, then the next one's got to make up more than that to cover the losses from that previous book. So you look at somebody like IDW who has published a lot of these, and you say, hey, right, that's the main criteria, unfortunately. There's lots of books that I've wanted to see published. I mean, I think I was an 80s teenager, so that was that's my reading period. So John Bolton, Paul Smith, Romita Jr., these are ones I'd love to see. Batman Year One. Is there anybody on the planet who doesn't want to see a Batman Year One gallery edition? That kind of stuff, and then I think the third thing is rights, right? You've got to work with the publisher. You've got to get the rights to publish something, and if they don't want it done, then you've got to wait, and you've got to bide your time, and you've got to move on to something else. I was thrilled to see manga covered by Dark Horse in that Lone Wolf and Cub. Can we see more? I certainly hope so. I see the on the forums. I'm on the Tap Talk forum. There's a link on the site. I'm there every day. On the I'm just trying to remember the name of the Artist Editions discussion thread. Right, I'm on. There's a Let's go there now. There's normally somebody posting something every day. Have been, trying to find the number here. There's been 15,735 posts, 787 pages on the site, and invariably it comes, every couple months somebody will bring back, hey, what's your list of what you'd like to see? Well, I'd love to see lots of things, but what we want to see as consumers, I think at this point, is not necessarily the criteria that publishers are using, right? It's, can I get the material? Can I make money? Can I get the material? Can I get permission to publish it? Can I make enough money to make it worthwhile? Yeah, that's it. All right. Thanks for that question. Appreciate it. I popped on the board there, and it was Citizen Wayne who posted 5 days ago his list of covers. He posted he shows 75 covers, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 of those covers are from Mad. So like I said, I'm not sure those will appear. But a lot of covers. That's sort of I noticed he didn't include the portfolio in the list. So there's also that Best of ECE portfolio that had some covers. Now that also had recycled covers from the books. So I think the covers is going to be pretty exciting. The covers seem to sell really well. The Marvel covers sold well. I brought up on the forum that since these aren't complete stories, the criteria of labeling a book an artist edition is that it contains complete stories, and an artifact edition contains incomplete stories or pages from stories not complete. So really, these cover books should be called artifact editions. But they've stuck with artist edition, and it's worked so far for the covers books, so they'll continue on with that. So says Scott Dunbier. All right, 2 AE format books were published this month. Very exciting. It's been a while. So those two, let's discuss each one of those separately. P. Craig Russell's The Selfish Giant and Other Stories Fine Art Edition. Here's the blurb. This beautiful 12 by 17 inch oversized hardcover features complete stories scanned from Russell's stunning original art. While appearing to be in black and white, each page has been scanned in color to recreate as closely as possible the experience of viewing the actual originals, including blue pencils, notes, art corrections, and more. Pages are reproduced at original size on heavy paper stock to provide fans, aficionados, and collectors with the best possible reproductions. This 128-page fine art edition includes the following complete stories, all classic Oscar Wilde fairy tales that have been adapted to comics by acclaimed artist P. Craig Russell. The Selfish Giant, The Star Child, The Young King, The Remarkable Rocket, The Devoted Friend, and The Nightingale and the Rose. 128 pages, 12 by 17 inch, 150 US. This was offered through Indiegogo, and then was released through they shipped in December, and then it was released through Diamond January 22nd. I think it still lists the ship date as January 29th from Diamond, but it actually came out the 22nd. This book, third one from Wayne Allen Herald Productions, it's great. It's I have the 5 hardcover volumes from NBM, and I love these. I'm still waiting for the remaining stories to be published. I really hope they see print. But so Russell gives a introduction to the entire volume at the beginning, and then we see images, and then we see every story. Most of the scans are quite nice. I had some trouble with scans in the Young King. No, was it the Young King? No, I don't think it was. Let me just scroll up here. I'm looking at my review. I think it was the Star Child. Just some softness on the bottoms of the pages, and not detracting enough to say, bad pages, but it's there. And then I thought the couple things about this I thought was interesting. I found a spelling mistake that was corrected in the print version, but because this is the beauty, right? This is because it's original art, and it was what was written on the page. Caught a spelling mistake. in the Young King. Very nice. But yeah, the as it mentioned in the not solicitation, but in the Indiegogo campaign, they hired Galen Showman to hand letter the 4 stories that were digitally lettered. So The Young King, The Morocco Rocket, The Devoted Friend, and The Nightingale and the Rose were originally lettered digitally and separately from P. Craig Russell's original artboards. So they took on that expense to get those done. I thought that was interesting. Other publishers have been just overlaying the digital lettering on the scans, so I'm not sure you could tell the difference, but the hand lettering is nice in that it's got a worn look. I'm not sure how Showman did it, but it looks in line with the other pages where the lettering is aged, so it was very nice. To see these stories at this size are awesome. I love Russell's adaptation of this material. It just looks so great. And it's at the point where he was doing these, his art style that he has now he was established in that. So we have this work appearing in that style, and it's just gorgeous. You can't go wrong with a P. Craig Russell book, and I mean he's getting to be maybe I don't know. This is the 7th, I think, or 6th. I'd have to look it up, and it's so nice. I mean, I would certainly get every one that he's done. He's done a Dark Horse, Marvel, these. Pick them up, people. Just get them. If you're a fan of Russell, you really need to pick these up. And because it's a small publisher, we know Herald, I frequently see them on sale on his website. So if it's still available, I'd check that and pick it up from there. There's been some talk on the forums. Because of the move to a smaller printer for this, the books do not come in a cardboard case, and people are slightly bemoaning that. They were shipped in a padded envelope with the sticker that we've grown accustomed to, image from the book, title, barcode, that kind of thing. But this is available online from comic retailers. I checked your local comic shop. I think it was mostly pre-order, and then I'm not sure what kind of availability there is left. So always from Wayne's website, though. So check that out. All right. Second review this month was Ed Piskor, the Fantagraphics Studio Edition. And that was... Here's the blurb. Ed Piskor, the Fantagraphics Studio Edition, highlights the work of this Eisner Award-winning cartoonist, focusing on his 2 best-known series, Hip Hop Family Tree and X-Men Grand Design. In addition to excerpts from these 2 major comic projects, this impressive tome features dozens of other gems from Piskor's archives, including commercial art, designs for a line of Public Enemy action figures, and much more. January 22nd, 2020, 12 3/4 by 19 3/4 inches, 180 pages, 150 US. Now, the reason that odd sizing, the art sits in the middle of the page, and there's decent borders around the art, but every page has a footnote. Pretty well every page is a footnote. I'd say, 90%. And that's really the it's a astounding sellout feature, because Piskor gives, he reflects on the art, whether the criteria or reactions or material, just his, he went through his archives, picked out all the pages that he thought, should be represented in the book, and then gave his thoughts basically on the pages. It's really well done. Now, again, like all Fantagraphics Studio Editions, there's nothing, well, I shouldn't say that, because the Jaime Hernandez book had complete stories. But this is a sort of a career retrospective where just pages are picked. Piskor released 4 volumes of Hip Hop Family Tree. So there are, there's groups of 3 and 4 pages in this, but there's no complete volume. We don't get that. And as I said in the review, I think it's a disservice to Piskor and his work that X-Men is even mentioned or in this book. It's a 180-page book. I think we see 150-something pages of Hip Hop Family Tree, and we see, 9 pages of X-Men. or was it 12? Let me just check my review here. But it's not. It's just, don't include it. Don't try and sell the book to X-Men fans, or his X-Men fans of the X-Men book, because if they buy this and they're not crazy about Piskor's other work, then they're going to be hugely disappointed that this had, so few pages. But it was, hip hop for this should have been just Hip Hop Family Tree, because he does the complete, there's roughs, there's the covers, there's a lot of pages, and then there's the at the back he designed the Public Enemy action figures, and there's the material there. That's really well done too. How it's covered, but yeah, it's a really outstanding book if you're a fan of Piskor and his work. I had not read any Piskor work, but because I'm a huge fan of Fantagraphics and this format, I picked this book up, and it's really exceptional. A lot of great material. So any fan of the medium, or the fan of Piskor or how he approaches, should really pick this up. Well worth it. All right, that's the month that was. I should mention that you can support the Artist Edition Index 3 ways. 1, become a patron through Patreon. That's patreon.com/AEindex. And for $1 a month or whatever more you'd like to contribute, you can help support the site. Second way to support the site is using any of the links I have on the site to purchase any of these books. They're all affiliate links, so I get a small percentage back from any of those. That's always appreciated. And the third way to support the site is by clicking the PayPal Me link and just giving a one-time contribution to the site. So all those would be greatly appreciated. You can follow us on social media, but I think the best way to follow the site is to sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It recaps the week, and you can see what was on the site. So just one quick look from the eyeballs, and you get to know exactly what happened in the week at the AE Index. All right, thanks for joining me, and we will talk again next month.